Hello and welcome to episode 4 of This Week in Linux, the Intro to Linux. As always, if you're confused about what's going on, make sure to check the links in the sidebar or in the doobly-doo. Let's go ahead and get started. Today we're going to be talking about dual booting. I assume that you've got a Windows XP machine and you want to install Ubuntu alongside it. We've tried the live CD so you know how it works. You've tried Wooby, so you know how you can do it inside of Windows. Well, this time we're actually going to move some partitions around, and we're going to actually install it, so you'll have an actual copy of Ubuntu installed. Now, the first thing you're going to want to do is defragment your hard drive in Windows. If you've used Windows for any amount of time, you should know how to do this by now, but go into the control panel, into computer management, click on disk management, and defragment the disk in there. This is a Linux video, I'm not going to go through how to defragment Windows for you. But when you're done with that, go ahead and stick your Ubuntu CD back in the drive. I'm going to be using 9.10 because that is the most current at the time. I don't want to use 10.04 because it's still in the beta and I don't want to give anybody the wrong impression. Alright, so you go ahead and you stick your CD in the drive, you go ahead and hit start in Windows, go to turn off computer, and hit restart. Now, like I said before, I'm assuming that you've already defragmented your drive. If you haven't, there's a possibility you could screw something up. If your data is fragmented enough, it could cover the entire partition, and resizing it, it's possible you could lose data. That's just a big warning I'm throwing out there. So, we're coming up to the disk. We'll go ahead and tell it to install Ubuntu, because this time we're not even going to bother going into the live environment. We just want to get this going. Alright, and it finally does decide to come up. You'll tell it to go forward. It's going to set the clock from a time server. Doesn't matter where you are. Go ahead and tell it your time zone. I'm just going to accept Eastern because that's where I am. Forward. Select the keyboard layout. Go ahead and tell it whatever yours is. Mine's USA, so I'm going to stick with that. Forward. Here is where the key part happens. By default, it's going to ask you if you want to install them side by side, choosing between each startup. Since this is the first time you've ever done it, I assume, that's probably the safest bet. For future ways to do it, it's actually best if you create two new partitions. You go ahead and resize it like this is going to do, but rather than having one big Ubuntu partition, you'll actually have one about that size. You know, it's going to take 14.7 gigs here, you see, and I would actually give it like 5 gigs for Ubuntu and the rest, 10 or whatever, for the home drive. That way, if you ever have to reinstall Ubuntu, you don't lose everything. So, anyway, I'm going to tell it to install side by side, choosing between each startup, hit forward. Before you make any changes, anything must be written to disk. Let's go ahead and do that. Just be very careful here. Make sure you've got everything backed up before you make any changes. I cannot emphasize that enough because I don't want to be held accountable for any data loss here. So, what is your name? We're going to call us Ubuntu. Nice and simple. Password, Ubuntu. And what is the name of this computer? Ubuntu Desktop. That sounds great. And we'll log in automatically for ease of use. You've entered a password that is too easy to get in using. That's fine. We're on a VirtualBox. I don't care for now. Continue. On yours, I do highly recommend setting a very complex password, but it's something that you need to be able to remember because if you do forget it, though, I've put a video up. I'll actually put an annotation in here somewhere how to get your password back if you lose it. And you can get your user account and everything back. Do you want to migrate your documents? No. No, I did a plain install of XP. I don't need to. If you have specific things in XP you want to migrate, you can do that. You can get your Internet Explorer, your wallpaper, your pictures, your all sorts of fun stuff. So, I don't have anything. I'm going to go forward. It gives you this last second. It shows you what it's going to do. All of the settings you've selected and all that. We're going to go ahead and hit install. And you have seen this part before, so we're going to go ahead and skip right to the end. 100%. And as you see, the installation is now complete, so you need to restart to use the new installation. Awesome. Alright, disk removed, hit enter to reboot. And you should see here you'll have an option of what you want to choose to boot to. When you did it before with Wubby, it was Windows first, it did not use Grub. If you'll notice here, you've actually got GNU Grub, 1.97 Beta 4. So, we'll go ahead and choose this first one, Ubuntu Linux. Alright, and there you have it. We are officially inside of Ubuntu now, just like we were with Wubby, but this time it's actually on the hard drive now. So if you accidentally deleted your XP partition, you'd still be just fine. You would have Ubuntu installed and you're good to go. Just make sure you do not delete those ext partitions on your hard drive when you're inside of Windows. Don't tell it to format, don't tell it anything else, just leave them alone. If you do decide that you want to remove Ubuntu eventually, I will do a video about that. That will probably be number 6 or 7 in this series, somewhere near the end. One of those, if you just absolutely have to get out and you don't want it anymore, we'll go back to Windows. But as we saw in the last video, you've got your applications menu with all those wonderful things that you can do, installing new software. You see the update manager came up on its own with tons of new updates that you can install. For the most part, the Ubuntu updates are pretty safe, but do those at your own risk. I can't tell you to absolutely you have to do them, but eventually you will have to do it. So if you want to make sure everything is working appropriately, you want to make sure your XP install still works, go ahead and click the upper right corner and go to Restart. Tell it to restart. And now when it's coming back up, select Microsoft Windows XP Home Edition, or whatever you've got there. If you've got Vista or if you've got 7, you can select that. If it works, wonderful. And as you see here, we are booting into XP, so everything worked beautifully, very quick and easy install. As you see here, it's actually checking this file system, but that should go just fine. That's because the partition resized outside of Windows, and it gets a little pissed off about that. But that's definitely no big deal. So go ahead and select Windows again. And we're booting into Windows. There you go. We're back in Windows, just like it never happened. But now you've got options. Alright, and that is it. You should have a fully set up dual boot Ubuntu/Windows XP system. If you're using Windows 7 or Windows Vista, you might have some quirks, some things that don't work exactly like they did in this video. Go ahead and ask on ubuntuforums.org or ask in the comments and I can try to help you out. I don't have anything that's running Windows 7 or Windows Vista, so I can't immediately help out, but I can try. That's all for episode 4 of the Intro to Linux. Come back next time, we'll be talking about Linux alternatives and how to run Windows software in Linux, which works sometimes. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time.